Guys, another episode of the Immersive Pod. Today I would like to welcome my esteemed guest, Michelle from 3C's Healing. Hi, Michelle. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm blessed. I like to say I haven't had a bad day in quite some time. So where are you speaking to me from today? I'm in Tampa, Florida.
I am in Burley, Idaho.
Idaho, right on. You know, it's funny when I think of Idaho, I don't know why. Holy and Dynamite.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I don't know why.
Yeah, that's a good show.
So, Michelle is a hypnotherapist. She's a healer, but all healers, all hypnotists, they all tend to have their own style or at least way of handling things. Michelle, could you tell us a little bit about what's the secret sauce? What makes 3C's Healing? 3C's Healing. Which was Michelle's secret sauce?
So the 3C's. So you have So when you see my page, it says 3. It's spelled out CCC. The 3C's stand for consciously choosing connection. So I really want people to understand that when you come play in my world, you're going to consciously choose yourself. And what I'm here to do for the collective is to really help people heal here, right? Like finding connection within themselves. Because when you find connection with yourself, that's when you create the frequency within yourself to attract people who want to consciously choose the frequency that you're choosing. Does that make sense? So when we choose into our consciousness of frequency, you don't have to put huge boundaries up. You don't have to put all these, verbalize and have this electric fence up, because you created that internal reality that then showcases in your external. So when I do hypnotherapy, I want people to dive into their subconscious, their shadow, and really connect within themselves of why they chose to be human, why they chose to have this human experience. Many people, when they come into my reality, they're like, I don't really like being human. I don't like this human experience. I'm never going to come back again. But you chose to be human. And the human experience is really such a unique and magical experience. We have a nervous system, which a lot of beings don't have. We have emotions that teach us so many things about ourselves. And we get to enjoy pleasures that a lot of other species don't get to enjoy. Food, sex, like there's lots of things that you get to enjoy as a human. And there's a lot of species that don't get to have those experiences. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. It's like almost like, I mean, not in like an insulting way, but it's like they're just maybe they're souls too, they're beings too. They have rights to being called beings or entities. But like a lizard, for example, just might be a lower frequency being than a human with free will and the ability to, compose a symphony or enjoy the feeling of love or pleasure or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And so
And I agree.
As everything, there's a duality experience, right? We have sadness and we have happiness, and we have all these dualities, perspectives. So what I am here to do is help people understand themselves at a deeper level, at a soul level, and to really embody the pieces and parts of themselves that they think they don't like about themselves, but to flip the perspective of, wow, this is what makes me unique. This is maybe why I don't fit into society, is because I'm not supposed to fit into a society that's broken. Or maybe I'm the black sheep in my family because I'm actually the pattern breaker, right? So helping people understand a different perspective.
And you said that so well. And just a quick thank you for, I genuinely, I dove all in to, my awakening was an abrupt one. I dove right into like, what can I do for the collective? Put me in, coach. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I was passionate. But I think I just want to say thank you for what you do for people when they're ready and willing. Of course, people have to be ready and willing, but other times somebody comes to you, and hopefully a few people, find you from this show. They're ready. They're ready to see something that maybe they weren't ready to see before. I've been referring to this process as watering the seed. We always say planting the seed. Seeds are planted. But so somebody may have had a seed planted, but things don't start to happen, so it's watered.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the term watering the seed. You have people who are very, very close and very capable, and almost you can sense that they're right there on the edge of ascension and awakening, or at least seeking that path. But there's
Yeah.
this, natural attachments to the 3D, the old Earth, and what you do is grand part of helping along that shift into the new Earth really being part of the zeitgeist and not just a fringe idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too is, I think a lot of people misunderstand is that in order to get into a place and a position to want to assist other people, I had to dive into parts and pieces I didn't necessarily want to see about myself, right? And look at those shadowy pieces, right? So, I grew up super religious in a religion that didn't accept me as someone who channels, someone who sees the other side, sees multidimensional beings. I am a certified hypnotherapist, but I also am a channeler. I've been a channeler since I was a child. I speak an array of different light languages and channel a variety of different beings. I do a lot of coding with the DNA cells. I'm still activating that within my memory of going back to Egypt and bringing forward that ancient knowledge and understanding for myself to bring into the collective, and I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing and the reason why I chose to be into this realm of spirituality, I don't even like to say that I'm in the spiritual world because I was raised in a cult. Yeah, I don't love the labels because I was raised in a really staunch religion. I specifically want to call out the bullcrap. I want to specifically call out the, propaganda. The solar flash is just going to bring in everybody, and everyone's just going to wake up, and everyone's going to be ascended, and fear mongering. And the thing is I'm going to shine the light in someone's face that's going to say, I see something different within myself. Does that make sense? So I know that I'm a pattern breaker. I love that I can just say, I think if you get in my page or whatever, you see me, and I'm going to call the bullcrap what it is because I see it. It's like that bullshit meter just flies off the handle, right? Of
course, in the 100%. In this, I'm also, involved in the spiritual community, but I hate saying that because I don't like those labels. And I think what's associated with that label is kind of the old term of snake oil salesman. We're everybody who's in that crowd is, woo-woo and crazy. And if that worked, then where's the new Earth now? I don't know, it doesn't quite work right like that. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm very much the same way. I wasn't raised in a really strict religion or anything like that, but my family was very conservative. I hadn't heard light language, or I was never taught to. In fact, my family wasn't really religious at all. So for me to leave my old life, which I guess if I had to place a name on what the religion was, it was just status. Dollars and status. That's what we go for in America. I guess what I see my role, and I love how you mentioned what you see your role is in the collective to call out that, that kind of bull crap that comes out sometimes, and really, show things for just how they are, not to be like a gotcha journalist, but that's a good thing. That's a great thing that you contribute. The way I see myself contributing is I see myself as a bridge, between the people who are fully speaking light language. I had somebody speak light language to me earlier. I had my eyes closed. I felt it in my chest, all that fun stuff. But I also have friends and connections and relationships with people who they would laugh at the concept of light language, or they would, they would laugh at the idea of connecting with an extraterrestrial or an extra dimensional, but maybe they believe that they believe in aliens, or maybe they think something's funny about the moon landing, or just some seed has been planted.
Yeah, for sure.
I always see my role as to be the bridge. Those are people who have, they could go either way. They could ascend, or they could stay low frequency. And let's try to give those folks a hand. High tides, all boats rise.
Yeah.
We all have our own little roles.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and maybe it's not necessarily about whether or not someone believes in the moon landing or they don't believe in the moon
Of
landing or they
course.
believe in, different things like that. Maybe it's just about, maybe this awakening is about just finding out who you are and owning
About
a
self.
frequency of like loving the hell out of yourself, loving you for who you are, loving this human experience. And it's not necessarily about all the woo-woo stuff, right? Maybe it's just
100%.
about you coming back to home within yourself and finding stillness within yourself, right? And coming
I,
as a collective and saying, it's not necessarily about whether or not you believe the moon landing is real, or maybe it's
of
just
course.
about you just being the best person about yourself. And everybody, one of the biggest awakenings that I realized was that everyone can have their own truth.
Yeah, I mean, what you believe to be the truth to you right now, or anybody out there listening, I mean, to you or them or myself, it is the truth.
Yep.
It's reality. Our mind is the creator of our realities. I know it sounds cliche, but it really is.
It really
Even if you don't
is.
believe in even looking at it outside of the quantum physics realm, I mean, what's reality without, our opinion on it, our
Yeah.
observation of it. So,
Yeah.
and I think people from a young age just are conditioned to believe that they don't have any say in how they observe it or how they experience it.
Mhm.
It's like a predestined experience that they're going to have to go through, and that's why we end up in places like, oh, why is this happening to me? And of course, bad things happen, but I think more often than not, it's either something to serve the collective or something that, through intention or not, was a choice. It was something that was not predestined, but something that your soul was pulled to do. I'm sure you've
Mhm.
heard a little bit about, what souls are pulled to do. That being that you practice regression hypnotherapy,
Yes.
and that's what you do, correct? You regress.
Yes. Yes. I
Okay.
do. I do regression. I do a variety of different forms of hypnotherapy. So I do something called like where I use a timeline and we pop into the event and we can neutralize it. I use NLP, which is like a neutralization of the trauma event. I can also go through past life or generational experiences where we can neutralize a belief or a pattern that you've inherited or you've had an experience. So
So
when
that might be
I
people like with like I'm sorry, cutting into like people with
that's good.
like addiction problems or something like
Yeah.
that. Is that like,
Yeah.
kind of
PTSD.
generational issues, PTSD, things like that? Okay,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
cool.
So anything, so I truly believe that the biggest form of mental health is really to dive deep into what's causing the pattern, what's causing the loop, right? Like what's causing you to have Groundhog's Day over and over and over again, right? It's such a symbolic
Right.
place of being able to see what is it, what's the loop and why are you experiencing
Another
that
day
loop?
of this.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody can identify with that in some way, shape, or form. Everybody's had a deep, dark, depressive episode or a major dark night of the soul, but I do have a feeling that most of the people who are hearing about or viewing this show probably had some kind of dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
Um, the dark
They're
night of
fun.
the soul, I define as it's the time between when the old belief or the old paradigm of beliefs has been proven wrong to you and you no longer believe in it. And you have not long yet replaced it with a new
Yeah.
belief or a new
Yeah.
truth. And that's when things are dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seems
For
dark. I
sure.
don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. This concept of the dark night of the soul. I think I'm not sure that there is good or bad in the cosmic consciousness. I think it's just a thing. It's a tool that's meant for us to experience. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. But
Yeah.
who am I to decide, right?
Right. Right. Well, the night of a dark soul really is just a version of yourself that you no longer resonate with. Right.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
always tell people one of my favorite ceremonies is, when someone's had a night of a dark soul and they're like, oh my gosh, I walk in my closet and I don't resonate with any clothes in there. Right. Or I look in the mirror and I'm like, who is this? Who is this person? Right. And it's really about honoring where you came from, honoring what that gave you, And it's almost like a funeral in a sense for yourself, right? The Night of a Dark Soul is almost like a funeral. You're like,
Yeah.
thank you for all these beautiful experiences, but I'm ready to move forward. And so you let that version of yourself. My favorite way to do that is actually write like an obituary or an appreciation letter of my own version of myself, burn it and bury it, just like you would or spread ashes somewhere. That's like a really simple ceremony that your followers can do for themselves when they are experiencing some heaviness. And the thing is when you get it out of your system, you burn it, which is the element of fire, using the element of Gaia and the earth and burying it and letting it go, you're releasing that energy off of you.
And that makes sense to me. I'm actually a practicer of, I do mirror work. I believe in affirmations. I write out my goals. I write out my day, things like that. But what Michelle's suggesting is actually interesting. If you have a self that you no longer resonate with, and you still can't let go. It may not be a terrible idea to write down and define what exactly that self is and what you're letting go of. That's good advice, Michelle. Of course, that's why you're here, because I knew you would bring little gems like that.
Yeah. So, to go back to like a past life regression. So, I'm certified in QHHT, and doing past life regressions. The thing is I'm not a person that likes to follow the way someone told me how to do something. So I'm very much hey, if you tell me to go straight, I'm going to take a left because I want to see what else there is out there, right? Like I like the scenic view, but the scenic view always gives you more codes. It gives you more experiences, right? So when I do a past life regression, we're not just going to go explore your past life. What we're going to do is we're actually going to bring fractals of you back into your parts and pieces of yourself. So that's why when people are like, oh, you're a hypnotherapist, I'm actually a multidimensional healing facilitator, because not only can I take you into parts and places and activate remembrances, I can actually bring those back into this time, space, and dimension, right? So
rather than just someone just describing a past experience, it's almost like reliving it in a sense.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So when we go, like, let's say hypothetically, I've done a lot of Atlantis, Samaria, Inner Earth, right? And it's like, we're going to go in there and what did that teach you? Because the thing is your gifts that you have right now, right? Like I was born as a channeler. So that means I've mastered that in past life incarnations. So that's why I have those gifts now. Does that make sense?
Because the gift carried through your last reincarnation.
That's right.
It's such a gift that it's attached to your soul and you're born with it. I understand the concept. I believe that's what I believe anyway. So
and some people may disagree, and that's fine. But I really truly believe like we bring those into our incarnations, right? So when we bring them into our incarnations, sometimes we just have to like spark that remembrance of, I was this priestess in Egypt, or, I even done a past life where I was a librarian of ancient knowledge in Egypt, where I was like this Lyran being in this library in the underground underneath the pyramids. So it's activating those remembrances of like, oh, I was this person. What did that teach me? It coming from a place of curiosity, right? I always tell my clients, like, when you start to live your life in curiosity, your life becomes fun.
Without attachments. I would add with forgiveness.
Yeah.
The ability to forgive quickly. And it's curiosity. That's amazing. I mean, think of how curious we were as children, little babies, toddlers. I watch kids now and they're full of wonder. And a lot of that drives from just, they haven't experienced everything yet, or this physical, everything in this 3D reality yet. And they're just curious. And that's magical. There's something magical about that. Pardon me there.
Well, and your inner child is really your soul. Your soul is playful. So if you look at a child, that's actually what our souls are like. They're very playful, very childlike, right? Where our higher self is a little more of that shadowy person. And so I believe that your shadow is your higher self incognito, just teaching you what you're supposed to learn in this incarnation.
Right. And people think of the shadow and they think shadow and darkness. And, I guess you could equate the two, but it doesn't always have that in a negative sense or a bad way, right? I mean, it's you're supposed to spend time in the shadow. You're supposed to, the shadow, the darkness, what's dark about your current existence. And learn from it, right? I mean, isn't that kind of the goal? Is that what people come to you for when they, are seeking hypnosis? Are they really coming to, face their shadow? Is that kind of a safe way to say it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like they're coming in to say, well, when people come to me, they're not like, hey, I want to come and do some shadow work with you. Because
Right,
that
of
sounds
course.
fun. Right? Like, no, when they're coming into my world, it's like, hey, Michelle, I'm really depressed. I'm not happy in my marriage. My older children don't talk to me. I have really defiant children. My marriage is falling apart, right? And it's usually because their life is in shambles,
And
right?
it's usually
Or,
the case of
I've even had,
needing to look at the shadow, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I even say all this time, I say, your external world is a direct reflection of what your shadow is trying to teach you. So if your life is in shambles, if it's chaotic, if it's you have a marriage that's failing, you don't like your partner, you don't like yourself, probably time to have a conversation with yourself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. We all have to go through uncomfortable experiences. I mean, all we really know is this lifetime.
Yeah.
Of course, you have probably a little different perspective on that, having done so many regressions. All I'm conscious of most days is this lifetime. But I do believe in reincarnation in past lives. So think about it. That being said, it's not like I can think about what I learned 20 incarnations ago. I think about now and what I learned now and what I can do with it. The rest is a haze of amnesia. I've got to learn those lessons again from this viewpoint, from this perspective.
Yeah, with the body that you're in. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Absolutely. So you started really diving into, acute regression therapy and things like that. I think you told me back in 2021 or so. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
What, mind me asking, I mean, what were you doing before that? Was there, it's always a question that's often asked in these circles. Was there an awakening? Was there abrupt awakening? Was there something like that?
So I don't think I've ever been completely asleep. So, I was the one in 6th grade. They're teaching about landing on the moon. And I was like, wait, no, everyone's fishy. Oh, no, everyone's believing this. Okay, we're going with this, right? I came home to my father who served 9 years in military. And I was like, Dad, I don't believe we landed on the moon. And he was like, I watched it on TV.
I watched it. Yeah, right.
And my mom was a teacher. Yeah. He was like, oh gosh, I've watched it live. We landed on the moon and been to Kennedy Space Center, and my mom's like, you still don't believe that we landed on the moon? I was like, no. So I've always been that way. Yeah, pretty much. So I have family that's very very much here in this space, right, where they believe what they see on TV, and I've always been the one that's like, hey guys, I
identify with that. I didn't, like I said, I didn't grow up in a strict religion or anything, but my family is very much the same. Just there's some offshoot kind of characters.
Yeah.
My parents, my rest their souls, but my parents were very just average people. They did not believe in aliens or ghosts or being hypnotized or anything like that. 9/11 was really Osama bin Laden and all that, and just all the stuff they taught us. Gulf of Tonkin really happened. Whatever was on TV, and but I've always not been that way. I've always been one, and I guess I was probably a little bit of a pain in the ass when I was younger. I got to question authority, but it was more like I really resonated with what you said there. They're all believing this.
Yeah.
It's a funny little factoid. That's actually how I remember the day I stopped believing in Santa. And I have an older stepbrother who I grew up with. He's 3 years older. But I remember being 8 or 9 years old, and him, being 3 years older. So what? He would have been 11 or 12 years old. And I remember him waking me up and asking me to, hey, we're gonna see Santa. And I had this moment where I thought, well, Brett, I'm sorry I said your name. Well, he believes in this. it must not be true. Like, it was like a wake up moment for me, even as like a child. Like, it was via what other people believed and what I saw as like, well, that's the intended response I want from those people. They're giving it. I shouldn't give that response. I should look into this further.
Yep.
I've always been that way myself,
Yeah.
Really identify with that.
Yeah, for sure. So, so that, I don't think I was ever quite asleep. And so I married someone. I'm married to my partner. We've been together since 2007, the end of 2007. Thanks. And, he was like, do you believe 9/11 was an inside job? And I was like, I don't know. I'm open to like whatever. So like I married someone just like that. So it definitely helps that when your partner is a lot like you, right? Like he's like, do you believe in this? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm open to like, receive whatever. So
I'm open to theories.
Yeah, I'm open to theories. So that's the one thing, like I feel as my life partner, he's always like, hey, what do you think of this? And I'm like, I don't know. And we're both Scorpios, so Scorpios are always this like in-depthness, right? Like they're really in-depth people. And so we're both like, I don't know. So we like to like push each other into those deep conversations of like,
play devil's advocate. What if this? Right? What if that?
Yeah. Yeah, like, we'll be in the hot tub and he'll be like, hey, do you think you can move those clouds? And I was like, I don't know, I'll try. It's like, that's kind of how our life is, right? So, but anyways, so before I started this, my husband and I got married. We have 2 children. Each one of my children have brought a new awakening in awareness. So my oldest is a type 1 diabetic. So that brought an awakening, right? In 2020, he was diagnosed, and we're very holistic. We do a lot of things natural. In fact, I go to the health food store today because I have a sinus infection, and he puts all of these things on the counter, and I was like, I have all of those at home. I just will take these 2, right? So it's like natural things. So so I'm very much into natural remedies. Always have been, So one of my biggest wake up things was when I had a brand new baby, and he was highly allergic to like disposable diapers, and like went down the rabbit hole of that, and went down the rabbit hole of the childhood immunization records, right? I don't know how much we can say about that. Went down that rabbit hole, right? And then went down the rabbit hole of big pharma, and went down the rabbit hole of government systems, and so we've been down all the rabbit holes. And one of the biggest rabbit hole for me is raised in a religion that you believe is 100% true, and find out that it's all a hoax, right? So completely have deprogrammed all belief systems that I've had ingrained in me in my entire childhood. That's why I like to work with people and beliefs, because I have those codes. And so I went to college. I have a bachelor's degree in education and special education. So I have a 5-year bachelor's degree. So I am a certified teacher. I have taught in the public education system. I do not teach in the public education system anymore. I homeschool.
Joined the Rockefeller School of Education for a year.
Yeah. So I have one child in public education because they want to be in public education, and I have one not because I believe in the right to choose. So if they want to enjoy that, they come home and they're like, hey, we learned this today. And I'm like, what do you think of that? And it's good for them to learn the duality of we still live in a 3D system. And so they need to, it's really good for them to go in and be like, not really true, right? You know what I'm saying? But so like, they come home and then we can have open conversations. Yeah, exactly. Or, when an adult screams and yells and they're like, you made me so mad. And they're like, you actually make yourself mad. No one makes you mad.
You're mad.
Yeah, for sure. So I do have 2 children, very happily married in Idaho. We love to do things together. One of my favorite things to do with my spouse is he has an Indian motorcycle. So you'll see me video. You follow my social, you'll see us, going for rides. It's one of my favorite things to do is to ride up in the mountains and be behind motorcycles. Yeah, it's something fun we enjoy to do.
That's really great. I have a long-term. It's complicated. We're from different countries, but for all intents and purposes, she's my wife. She's from the Philippines. I have a partner as well. And she is, she's spiritual in her own way. She actually identifies as a witch,
I love that.
But it's a much different version of the spirituality that how I came to wake up, which isn't that thing at all. I was having a conversation with somebody about how center of a clock and the numbers around it represent different perspectives. And I just see that like, yeah, we're not asleep. We just, one of us is 2 o'clock and one of us is 8 o'clock, like kind of thing.
Sure.
We're just looking at it from different angles. But that's
Yeah.
cool because we'll, complement each other and put each other's brains to work at times and things like
Yeah.
that. In my late teens, in high school, really, and up through my early 20s, I was, a professional studio and touring guitar player. So, I was pretty lucky to have that experience and have that kind of freedom at that age. That being said, I saw a lot of like, dark things during that. And, yeah, I left the music industry like professionally when I was like 22 years old. And I was actually really depressed. I was confused and I felt bad and guilty and like just jaded by kind of what the whole thing was, because you grow up thinking Hollywood's a certain thing and all that. And I guess you get there through the wrong channels anyway. Not to say that anybody who's made it in music is demonic, but I mean there's a lot of that stuff. So I saw a lot of that stuff and came back to Florida where I still live. Few years wandering around. I'm not going to get into the few wandering years, but I ended up becoming a professional interior designer and just, selling cabinets, designing kitchens, working on nice homes. I worked my way up into a really nice spot. And my awakening was just so massively abrupt. I just had this realization that everything I was doing was not what I believed in. At the time, the other thing that happened was my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer, and it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. So this was probably like the end of 2020. And I was angry about that. It was the pandemic. We couldn't get her in for treatment because, they would just say like, isolate, it's COVID, isolate. And by the time they laxed the policies, they had diagnosed her at like a very advanced stage. So something that kind of threw me off a little bit. And then, of course, through the next few years, I saw a lot of the inside of big pharma and I guess what they would call big cancer. And then combined with that, I just had to leave that life that I was living. It was a very abrupt awakening before, 2020, 2021. I mean, if you would have asked, I would have thought that I would have just been an interior designer forever and never had a podcast talking to channelers and hypnotists and things like that. I would have thought that was crazy. And I considered myself asleep. But like you said, I don't believe I was always asleep. I think I got put back to sleep. I think that's the way it happened. I think when I was a kid, I think I was awake, but I think there is the danger of being kind of programmed and put to sleep. It happens to a lot of people. I kind of identify with that feeling. Is like I was awake as a true child. I was my true self, and then somewhere along the line, I was, what do you want to call it, programmed or hypnotized or asleep. That happened. And then I have this abrupt awakening, and I think a lot of people are finding themselves in that place the past few years. The concept of the spiritual awakening is, it's not just trendy, but it's real. I mean, it really is something that people are going through. I'm happy to be a part of it at all and have an ability to have a platform to share people who are involved with that kind of thing. But I think it's interesting that you had that kind of wake up experience, in 2020 with the, using my words carefully, with the virus and everything like that.
I mean, I feel
it
like
wasn't necessarily the virus itself. It was just like the implications and the consequences and such.
Yeah. Well, and it's like my child was born in 2012. So that's like, I became aware of the medical industry, right? Then my next child was born in 2016 and I had a night of a dark soul at that point. I mean, I was in severe depressed. My husband travels for power. He builds high voltage power lines for a living. He now is a quality control inspector. So we've traveled all over the United States in a fifth wheel with our kids, right? And just traveling around and experiencing different cultures and all these different things, right? But it was not an abrupt. It was like in 2016, I'm looking at this little baby and I'm like, she's such a baby. Like, why am I not finding a connection? Right? Like, where is that? right? And she was such a good, I mean, literally, if you could describe a perfect baby, that was her. Like she would sleep, she would eat, she was just so easy. But I was just so miserable, right? Like I just hated myself. And that's like where I was like, I had to hit rock bottom. And I think a lot of people are there too, is like, they just like, it's either like you want to die or you have to heal. And that's where I was at. Like, I've got to choose to either be a mom to my 2 kids or I've got to heal myself.
Yeah. And of course, when you have kids, other lives depending on you, that ups the stakes a little bit. But,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I really agree with you there. It's like, are you going to die? Like, in the sense of you're not going to have the will to keep fueling this avatar that you're living in because you don't vibrate with it. It's not yours. It's not you anymore. You need to make a change or you adapt, awaken, grow, etc.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And you learn like along the way, like the one thing I learned was that everything's just a frequency. So the power of your mind is literally creates the frequency in front of you. So, and people are like, this isn't true. It's like, actually, yeah. And a very quick way to shift your frequency in like 2.5 seconds is close your eyes and say, hey, mind, take me to a happy moment in my life. Right. And it takes you to that.
And that moment's real.
Yeah. And the moment's real. And you're like, gosh, I'm feeling so happy and feeling so excited. And for me, it's like the first time I held my little boy as a new mom, right? Like that moment of holding this little perfect little human baby that you worked so hard to get out, right? And you're holding this little tiny baby and you're like, gosh, like they're just looking at you. They're just happy. You get to finally see what they experience. And that's such a happy moment for me. And then I would just shift my frequency of, hey, spirit, amplify this frequency because I control my reality. Like if I can't emphasize that more in this call, it's like you control your frequency. So if you want to be sad and upset and mad, you're going to feed that frequency by like, yes, exactly. But if you want to be happy and you want to bring a frequency in every day, choose happiness. And I've taught this workshop before. It's called Happiness Codes. Choose into the happiness that you desire. And it's not about, some people are like, that's the ego talking, or I've had some people say that on like lives and stuff. And I said, it's not the ego talking because the ego is your relay system. The ego is teaching you what you're seeing, right? And I'm going to have a different perspective than a lot of people do on the ego. So your ego is actually, so it would be like, we had VCRs growing up, right? So your ego is what you're going to put the tape in. So you record a tape. Ego is the tape. So I'm going to say, I want to be happy, and I'm going to push play. That's the ego showing you what your reality is. Does that make sense? So you can actually recode your ego system by changing the narrative that you're explaining it. So a really quick 100%. Way would be write down your explanation of what you think love is. And a lot of people have an explanation of love as I have to earn it. I have to show my keep, which is very like 3D, like, right? Like showing up, especially women, like I have to make sure my husband has dinner. I have to make sure this, I have to make sure that, right? Like really feeding that patriarch energy. But what you can do is you can ask for ego to dump those files. And when the ego dumps those files, then you can actually recode your system to say, this is the way love is going to show up. Love is not earned. Love is endless. Love is shown every single day. I am shown love through the energy of frequency of love. And hey, ego, now I'm going to have you. It doesn't even need to be
shown. It's just almost emanated through frequency.
Right, exactly. But the thing is like children have to be shown love by like hugging and physical touch and things like that. And so, but what I'm trying to say is anything can be reprogrammed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, anything can be programmed. I think we're all born, for the most part, with a blank slate. I mean, aside from those who, like yourself, you say that, you've had the ability to channel from as long as you can remember. And that's, I mean, actually, I believe you had from my understanding of those kinds of gifts, and is that that's the way it works. You are a true channel, or if you're a true medium or a true whatever it might be, those are usually gifts that have passed through for lifetimes because they've taken more than one lifetime to really develop. So I believe you when you say that. It's interesting. So how was your 1 year teaching in the Rockefeller education system? I like to call it the public education system.
Public education system.
Was it in
I
the
had
US or was it in Canada?
It was in the US. It was here in Idaho.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed actually teaching. I really enjoy kids. I really enjoy the aha moments that children have. I do believe the importance of learning how to read and write, and really I think knowledge is just really important. Personally, my parents always pushed
100%.
education, not necessarily the education that we see today, but really pushing, amplifying the ability to learn and want to learn.
The ability
right?
to learn.
Yeah, really learn. And the thing is my biggest takeaway from the educational system is that, one, I don't fit into society. So that was very prevalent. It was like, newsflash, Michelle, you don't fit into this space. Two, I was kind of like on my way out of religion. And so most people in my area are very religious. And so, someone like me is considered, quote, when you said your wife's a witch, I was like, that's what people around here call me, as a witch, right? Especially because I speak this crazy language, light language, right? And so
I can imagine.
Yeah. The rumors are quite hilarious. I actually have a pastor that lives across the street. It's pretty funny, actually. For me.
It's kind of fun. Like, it's fun now, right?
I know. Sometimes I just want to like throw some little wreaths on people's lawn just to like hear them scream. No, I'm just kidding.
Just to play, yeah.
Just watch the reaction.
Really...
No, but I learned very quickly. I was actually pregnant with my second child, and I chose to be a mom, stay-at-home mom, and get to like experience, the baby phase. I'm very fortunate. My husband has always had a really good job, so I was able to stay home with my children and raise them, and be able to be like that hands-on stay-at-home mom with them. And so that's always been very fortunate. And I actually really love being a mom. It's something I take a lot of pride in. It's something I enjoy. My children are my entire world.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I don't share them on my social. So you'll never see pictures of my children on social. But
that's quite all right. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. So I'm very personable. You'll see me with my husband, but I just feel like I keep their security and their, keep them kind of blocked from anybody and anybody to come on my page, right?
It makes perfect sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't have any children, it's not that I don't want children. I just don't have children yet, but universe willing, one day.
Yeah.
Just doesn't
I think
happen.
children,
it's okay.
Yeah. I think children are one of the best, like, if you're awakening and your children really trigger you, it's such a great tool to be like, why did that trigger me so bad? Right? Like, they're such good little mirrors. And so it's fun. I have two really incredible human beings that teach me more than I'd ever taught them, I guarantee it. And they're actually both very, very highly intuitive, both highly gifted. My youngest actually downloaded Reiki when she was like 3. She's over there like moving energy with her hands at 3 years old.
And I'm seeing and hearing a lot of like anecdotal like reports, or you'll see a reel on Instagram or something about that, or the so-called like indigo children, like this new age of children who seem to be just, like you said, highly intuitive. They're doing light language. They're having downloads. Yeah. They're explaining the nature of consciousness and the creator and things like that. You see that stuff, and you never know for sure if that's a mom who coached a 4-year-old to say something, but it's like, no, there might be something about these souls who are incarnating now. And I really like to think that way. I like to think in my lifetime that I see a major shift, me too. In just about everything.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
And
I think you're seeing, and I also think that like my daughter speaks light language as well. And the thing is it's interesting to observe, people's take on different things, right? So like for me, I was a highly gifted child, but religion was like not okay, right? Like, don't do that, right? Where like me, I'm like, yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's like when you explain the seed, Like I had the seed, but it wasn't watered as a child. Does that make sense? Where my children,
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
this is watered. This is grown. We are giving fertilizer. We're validating what they're experiencing. And so
Absolutely.
therefore they're going to be further along consciously, right? They're still going to have an awakening, by the way. Children who are experiencing conscious parents are still going to have an awakening. They're still going to think their parents didn't do a good enough job, right? We're still going to have those
Right.
experiences,
They'll
right?
still think our music was corny, stuff like that.
Right? Or they're not.
All that fun stuff.
But the fact is everybody has an awakening. And it doesn't matter how conscious of a parent you are, which I think is really important that you do. We're still going to always be evolving into a higher consciousness, if that makes sense. That's what I believe anyways.
I believe so too. I believe that's the point. I mean, whether you believe that it's individual ascension or, a societal or a planetary or a species-wide ascension, if you will. I mean, I've heard it put in many ways by many respected thinkers. So I would agree. I think we're in a process of returning to the idea of oneness, the law of one, the cosmic consciousness, being able to tap into that. And not that I mean we're all going to turn back into some like one great AI that just operates no creativity. I think there is really something happening now where that's just the veil's just thinner. People are gaining access to their abilities, to their insights, to their fringe theories a little bit easier than they may once have. And the great example there is, I don't have any children, but the indigo children. I mean, the young kids these days pulling out Reiki when they're kids and things like that. I have like young cousins, I have nieces, nephews, things like that. I see a change that makes me optimistic. Of course, I mean, anybody can look at the youth and see changes that make them pessimistic, but I really do see a change that's making me optimistic. As far as young people go, I feel like they have a better chance than maybe our generation did or the one before, accessing, spiritual knowledge of just how to seek within self, because that's really where everything is anyway, in my opinion. I think that this generation has a better shot at that than we did, just because, I mean, it was like you mentioned to your upbringing. It was the same way for me. I mean, it was also slammed into my head to think a certain way, to believe certain things. This is the way it is. And doesn't necessarily have to do with religion, but just in every way. Like, for example, if you ever hear somebody saying they're channeling an entity, don't believe them, they're lying. Like, and I don't remember that lesson, but I'm pretty sure that was not a part of my upbringing. I was never conditioned to believe in extra dimensionals and things like that. That's something that I had to have an abrupt awakening on or experience myself. And I just guess, hearing you talk about your children really made me think like, there's hope there, because they're not all being mass shunned away from any self-seeking or any cosmic consciousness seeking or anything like that. So it's just refreshing to hear.
No, I think there is definitely going to be an abrupt awakening in a lot of people in their experiences. Even in the collective, there's people, I even feel like people today are more open to like a psychic than people ever have been, right?
100%.
Even 5 years ago, if I would have been like, hey, yeah, I'm a psychic. Like, I don't tell people that very often anymore, but it was something that I had to like almost over own, because it was like, I've always had to hide that part of myself. And so it's like, when you're able to own something that you are, people are like, they're like, what do you do? And they're like,
okay,
yeah, that's really cool. Can you read me right now? And it's like, no.
Yeah, it's starting to creep. I mean, old esoteric knowledge and just natural gifts from Mama Gaia, stuff that it's actually, or extra Mama Gaia, whatever.
Yeah,
it's changing. It's changing Mother Gaia, and I think it's time. Here they talk about ascension. think it could both be a personal ascension and an ascension of Earth, an ascension of everyone. It seems to be opening up while we see in the mainstream media and we see in the news, you know, the left versus the right and the woke agenda versus the awakened conspiracy theorist agenda. I don't, that's classic divide and conquer to me. Just what I see is a generation of people who at least have the opportunity to share ideas and wake up. And it's really hard to stop the spreading of ideas. It's impossible to unlearn. It's impossible to unsee. And once those seeds get planted and, these types of things become more and more accepted in the mainstream, there's not going to be any helping but water those seeds. And it just gives me great hope. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there against, quote unquote, the new earth, for certain reasons, one reason or another, but
yeah,
I don't think it's something that can be stopped.
The reason they're against it is because it questions their beliefs. If you can't question a belief beyond a shadow of doubt, right? That's why religion, like specifically the religion I belong to once upon a time, can't question it because it doesn't hold any water, right? Yeah. Truth is a truth, right? So if you go to a medium, right, and she channels your great grandfather to a T, that's truth. Like you can't deny that. You feel it. Yeah, you can feel it. And it's like when I speak light language, you may not believe in light language, right? But let me play in your frequency for a minute and you're going to feel something.
I feel it. Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so feeling is the shadow. It's the embodiment of this, I'm feeling something. So even in a religion, like you can go sit and listen to a sermon and it can be truth, right? It can feel inspiring. It can feel love and it can feel all these energies. And that's not the denial of truth. But if you can't question something, right, then that's where there's a problem. And that's what I teach my children. It's like, always ask questions. And if someone's offended by your question, there's your sign.
Because they probably don't want you to know the answer.
Right, exactly. And so that's just, I think we were talking before we push play on this is diving into like our ancient history and doing past life regressions. And people have asked me, they're like, how do you know Lemuria and Atlantis were real? And I said, because people wouldn't have remembrances of it. And the story wouldn't be the same.
That's the part that always kind of gets me. Again, logical brain still attached to it somewhat, and I'm not, I'm going to lie to it. But that's the one part that my logical brain goes through and says, okay, so-and-so has done 10,000 regressions. Yeah. Have they had, channeled it into, like Jane Roberts used to channel an entity named Seth or whatever, like, for example, how does one person start a conversation with Seth with a client in Idaho and then, travel to, say, Turkey and, regress someone, have a conversation with that same person? I mean, I've seen instances of that. And it's like you said, that's truth. It's really hard for me to say that's bullshit. When you see the consistency across cultures, across country, socioeconomic class, gender, it doesn't matter. All these people are saying the exact same thing. They've never heard it before. Something to that.
Yep. Yeah, I remember specifically doing a past life regression, and she was like, I'm on a planet, and it's between Mars and Jupiter. And I was like, that's weird.
Like you're on the asteroid belt.
Like it's not Saturn. It's not Saturn, right? Like I'm just like, what? And so I started asking all these questions, and I ended up like Googling it while I'm in regression with her, and it was Maladak, and it's the astro belt, right? And there was a planet that blew up, and it's the astro belt, and I was like, I'm like, how is this even possible, right? And she's very religious, and that was the interesting part. Like we were doing a trauma healing for something in particular, and she's very religious, and she was like, I'm not human. Like it was just her whole belief system was being rocked at that moment when she's like, this doesn't align with what I believe in, right? And so you have almost like a cognitive dissonance sometimes in trance, where like I'm not human. I'm on a different planet, and this planet is blowing up, and it's like
I'm in
moving
trance
to
right
different
now,
things.
so it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, right. So, but it's really interesting. Or like in Lemuria, when they had the flood and people are diving in the water, and because and they're going in and they're going into they're shapeshifters and they're mermaids, and they go
Right.
down into the water, and it's like, I mean, we're talking like men who don't even believe in spirituality. They're just like, I'm gonna see if you can put me into trance type of thing, and all of a sudden they're like a female mermaid, a siren in Lemuria, and
I
he gets
love
out
it.
of trance and he's like, I'm a believer.
Right. It's like, well, I guess I'm a mermaid. Yeah. But that's the
He's like,
best. I love
yeah,
that. Like, I love those souls that are just on a cusp of get it. Because it
yeah,
wasn't too
yeah,
long ago where I was always like that. I mean, I didn't place so much emphasis on who was the creator and what and why and who. I did from an academic standpoint and like an intellectual standpoint, but it's like my soul was on like mute. It was there, but like living a life without like letting my soul just completely and 100% guide it. Now that I look back, sounds completely crazy. But on other levels, it all sounds crazy. I mean,
yeah,
I had a good situation. I had a 6-figure job, a nice office. I wasn't going anywhere. I was involved with the company that I worked with right from the beginning, and they grew very fast. Could have done it forever. Then I just left, and everybody, my family, a lot of
yeah,
my friends, my partner, my wife, everybody thought it was kind of like, what are you doing? Like, why would you do that? Why would you give that up? And I didn't have a good answer at the time. My answer was really just, I'm so unhappy. But it wasn't unhappy. I was thinking of it as like depression, like clinical depression. And that wasn't what it is. That wasn't what it was. It was it was, uh, it was a dark night in the soul. It was the
yeah,
time. It was the universe tapping me on the shoulder and saying, you gotta go, buddy, time to go. There it was. So
yeah,
I think anybody, no matter what avatar, whatever image, whatever they're projecting, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Everybody could be one step away from a full blown awakening, from a full blown devotion to a part of the cause that is the new, better Earth. There's a million examples, but I really believe that. I believe in like a critical mass of people, like about 8 billion people on Earth. We can get 800 million of them to like really be talking to their higher self and doing shadow work and meditating regularly. That's 10%. Like that might be a critical mass of people. I feel like excited about it.
hmm
Just I don't know. I guess whatever the ascension of the new Earth is actually going to materialize as.
yeah. I'm open to endless possibilities, and just doing even past life regressions of people who have experienced different forms of Earth, right? Because that's what people don't realize is there's like Terra Earth, and there's all these different forms of Earth,
Right.
right? So it's like people think the timeline is just like this. Well, time isn't actually linear, right?
Linear.
And so people will have experience like Avalon. Well, when was Avalon? Was it the same time as Atlantis and Lemuria? Were they experiencing it the
Or
same,
was it parallel?
or was it parallel? Right. So we don't really know, because our humanness is very linear. And
And
so I
we're
just tell
limited,
people,
I guess,
yeah,
in the way we kind of codify things and understand them, right? I mean, is
yep,
that from your understanding being a
yeah. That's how that's
right?
how I perceive it. And even like when I've studied Dolores Cannon, she shows different forms of Earth at different times, and so if you study like the Bible, I know Christianity believes, Earth's only like 6,000 years old, right? And so it's like, that doesn't really add up, but maybe
That
that's a
makes much
timeline,
sense.
you know,
Yeah, it could be
right?
completely different timeline. Exactly.
Yep, yep.
I agree.
So it's just interesting to really observe how what people find is truth. It's really interesting to see what people find. I tell people all the time, like, it may be your truth, doesn't necessarily mean it's someone else's truth. but it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. And I think that's really where we have to get to our ascension place is there's no quote right or wrong. It's about what works for you.
They're all just tools that are available to all of us.
Yep.
Things like regression, hypnotherapy did.
Yeah.
Certain information downloaded or read or studied or given or whatever. It's all just tools. It's just tools.
Well, and the thing is too, is like, I'm not just a hypnotherapist. So yeah, I do regressions and I'm really good at them. You know, the Arcturians came to me about 3 weeks before I joined my Dolores Cannon QHHT. They upgraded my voice box to have theta codes. So I can put people into theta pretty quickly. I just like turn it on. It's very interesting and it just projects those frequencies. Awesome. And that's something I believe is truth, right? And some people may watch this and they're like, that's crazy. And it's fine. People can believe what they want. But what works for me
is... But a seed was planted.
That's right. That's right. So for me, that's what works. But the other thing is I love to play with frequency. I love teaching people how to play with frequency. I love to teach people the power they have within themselves. You know, I always tell people if it isn't a code or I call them God codes. If it's not a code from God or source, it's not your code because we're fractals of God, right? We're all a piece of God. And you can imagine God however you want, right? Like I was raised in a religion. I do not believe it's a man upstairs. I believe it's a energetic frequency personally. So we're all just a fractal of source, right? So if we're all a fractal of source, we wouldn't hold a negative belief in our frequency. So if we're holding a negative frequency, then that consciousness is I call it an entity, right? And those entities can always be attached back to fear, which I always tell people. So people are like, no, it can't be, but like attachment, codependency, those are all attached to fear. And what people don't realize is that when they have an entity attached to them, it's as simple as saying, I send you to the light, right? I just send you to light. I send you back to source. Okay. And when you understand that everything is a consciousness, we're talking every single thing is a consciousness. Okay. Your dog is a consciousness. Money is a consciousness. Currency is a consciousness. The Sphinx is a consciousness. Temples are a consciousness. Your home is a consciousness. When you start to really understand that everything is just a consciousness, then you can learn to master frequency.
Very, very well said. And I happen to agree with you on some of the points of belief there. So that's great. But you said that very well. I mean, Tesla said it too, you know, frequency, energy, waves, frequency. But yes, absolutely. I completely agree with you, Michelle. You couldn't have said that any better. That's quite the answer. So would you say you've learned more from seeking self or from what you've found from others while being regressed? What's revealed more to you about the true nature of consciousness?
I would say it's a good combination, right? Like when people have, I can definitely tell when people are more here. So like if I regress someone who's really new to consciousness, they stay in this space. It's very interesting because your higher self knows exactly how much information you can have. Does that make sense? It's really fascinating. Where if I take someone into regression, like if I took you into regression, okay, and we went into regression, your session would be like, right? Because you're open to all possibilities. Does that make sense? Or when someone regressed, like when I did my QHHT, it was like mind blowing, right? I went to like 4 different places. Open. Yes, wide open, right? Because I channel. And so she's like, I love doing QHHTs on you because people like you who channel you move really quickly because you can see things. Yeah. And so that's the other thing too, is like when I have someone in regression, I have my eyes closed and I'm going with you. Like, I want to go. I want to go with you. Awesome. Like, I want to experience this. I want to see where you're going.
Experience.
Yeah. So I'm like, I come into this space with you. The good thing about a good regression, person who's a good regression, is they never put their fish in your dreams. So I'm not going to be like, hey, do you see this, right? I'm going to say, hey, what are you experiencing? What do you see around you? Do a 360. What are you wearing? What are you seeing in your hands? Are you male or female? Are you, if you could name a location, what does the location look like? A good regression asks good questions. It's like being a detective.
Specific questions.
Yep, very specific. And the thing is, what makes me a different regression is I'm a channeler. So I'm experiencing what you're experiencing. So most of the time, I'm like, hey, what's up? So do you like the trees over there?
Yeah, that is like that's a different concept. Yeah, but
right? And so
that's good. There needs to be different practices, different methods to the so-called metas. There needs to be ways for everybody. That's awesome.
Right. It's always interesting when people get into their regressions is they're, I always ask the higher self, even before I was trained in QHHT, I'd say, what did this life teach you? This life taught me this. So it's like, why did we go to that place? What is it teaching you? What is it exactly teaching you? Right. And so I think that's really important that people learn those things. And so yes, I've learned a lot of things from regressions. I also do my own practice, my own ceremonies. I work with my own tools, and a lot of times it's just done in the shower. I'm a busy mom, and I just,
right.
It's literally like, hey guys, washing my hair, right? In the middle of a shower, working with the elements of water and communicating and having those conversations with my guides and my ancestors and my inner child and my emotional body, right? Having those constant open line communication. They're just all the time. Yeah.
Well, that's great to have that kind of belief and untethered access. I believe it's all like for me not to have that kind of access. I feel as if I have to go into meditation and trance before I start to receive any kind of insights, which is okay. But I feel like what you just described is just something that's just less, you just have less fluff in the way and a little more direct access to, guides or monads or whatever we're going to refer to them as. It's just a closer connection, and it's for a reason. Everybody's different. I think everybody can develop those abilities to some degree.
For sure.
I would also say that some people probably for a reason more than others, like yourself being born as a channeler, and that's different than me deciding to take a channeling class in my 30s. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's very, very, very interesting. I'm so glad that we've got to have a chat together. Your view on these things is very interesting. It's very refreshing, especially since your background coming from the Church of Latter-day Saints. Is that
Mormon? I was raised Mormon. Yeah.
Just like up till 2020, it just reminds me how fast Mother Gaia is. It's really ascending. Makes me think of me in 2020, and I was doing totally different things.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here today. I'm glad that you. Go ahead, Michelle.
Said it's about making that choice, right? Like, what do you actually enjoy doing in your life? What is something that doesn't feel like work, right? Like take work and just delete it out of your vocabulary. Like what feeds your soul? And as you ever studied human design, like I'm a generator, so I have to do things that generate energy within inside me, right? Like that I can feed my soul. And
creation,
I don't even
energy,
think I could,
or whatever.
Yeah. I don't even think I could go back to teaching quote unquote school, but I do love teaching tools. Do love teaching, helping people understand how to come back to here, right? And that's why even the retreat I'm running in July in Mount Shasta, that's our main goal, right? Our main goal is to have people walk away with tools, walk away with coming back to self, learning how to connect with yourself, learning how to connect with frequencies, right? And also utilizing the frequency in the vortex of Mount Shasta.
Of course. I mean, it's definitely a special place. Many say the most paranormal spot on Earth. There's definitely a vortex there. There's definitely some stuff going on in Mount Shasta. So should embrace the whole retreat.
For sure.
I bet a lot of people are looking forward to that. If you want to repeat that one more time, I mean, I want people to know about events you have coming up. So if you want to repeat that, since we just touched on it, if there was anybody who went, hey, what'd you say? What's the name of the event that you have coming up, and what are the dates and such, just in case anybody's interested?
Sure. It's Mount Shasta Retreat. It's going to be in Mount Shasta. We are going to have it July 28th through August 1st. If you would like to attend, you can follow me on IG, message me, and I can give you some information, or we can also post this on the podcast or whatever you guys want to know. This retreat is going to be facilitated by me and another healer. We are going to take people to ancient sites around Mount Shasta. She is a certified guide to be able to take us to different places. We're going to do actually a loving ET contact the last night so that we're going to connect with extraterrestrial. She's been doing this for quite a while. I'm going to be teaching some workshops, how to release the energy of fear, how to work with frequency, how to create a loving ego, right? So we're going to have workshops that you're going to go to a retreat, you're going to learn all these different things, but you're also going to come back with so many tools. You're going to feel rejuvenated. And most of all, we really want you to activate your authenticity codes within yourself, right? Like that's the most powerful frequency that we can harness as humans.
It's really awesome. And is the other healer, is she a CE5 practitioner? Is that her method of
it's actually her own method.
Contact?
Yeah, it's her own method.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yep.
It's a very cool, very, very cool.
Yeah.
So, Michelle's doing it. You're doing it. I love it.
Thank you.
It's good work for the new earth. We all appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me be on your show, Tyler.
Oh, Michelle, it was great to talk to you. And if you'd like to let anybody know where they can find you,
sure.
Please, now's a good time to say it. I'm going to put all this stuff in the link in the YouTube video and stuff, so they'll be able to find you, and you can send me any links for any retreats or anything like that.
Sure.
But if you'd like to let people know, just to remind people who you are, where to find you, what you do, and everything like that, I would love for you to have that open slot there.
So I am a hypnotherapist. I do past life regressions. I also do mentorship to help people through their ascension awakening. I teach workshops at least 2 a month. I actually facilitate also a membership group, a community. I've been running for over 2 years. It's called Soul. I do channel the voice of the soul, and it is a collective of beings from my star cluster that I channel specifically. So I actually have it this Saturday. I just ask them, hey, what are we learning this month? And they tell me, and I facilitate it, and it's completely organic. I never plan anything. It's all channeled. It's a 2-hour workshop. It's an incredible community. I record it every single month. I have an app that has at least 2 years worth of content on it where you can rewatch any of that if you're a member. You can find me at 3TREE_CCCS_healing HEALING on all major platforms, social, TikTok, IG, and Facebook. My website is just www.3cshealing.com. And I'll give Tyler all the links for that information.
Absolutely. And I will certainly, and thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Awesome. You're a wonderful resource for the community.
Thank you so much.
So thank you again. And yes, absolutely. I will put all that in the description for this video. So that's all clickable for anybody who wants to see anything specific. It's if one person sees something that they needed to see, that I always say, especially at the beginning of any endeavor.
Yeah.
One person helped is a worthwhile job. So it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for taking the time to come on. I know I was a little bit late. Well, nobody knows, but I was a little bit late to Michelle today. She was on here eager, and I was lagging behind, but it's okay. She's patient, and I appreciate her greatly.
Yeah, no problem.
Immersive podcast. We're going to probably stay at the pace of 2 episodes a week, everybody. So thank you for stopping by this time. Michelle is a very interesting person. There's more I wanted to ask her, but we only have so much time. So we may do a part 2 with her. And, who knows? Maybe you'll get to see us link up and get to see me hypnotize one day.
Cool. That'd be dope.
See.
Yeah.
Michelle, you have anything would you like to say to the audience before we sign off?
I just want you to really choose yourself every day, and whatever that looks like, learn to love yourself, because that's what you're here to learn.
And guys, you're going to see that as a theme. Everybody's saying that. Self. Seek inward, seek self. Namaste.